Check 1, 2.
Go! Curious about real estate?
Yes!
Then you've come to the right place. Get the knowledge you need. Get over the fear and get started. This is the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show with your host, Michael Quarles.
Hello, everybody. Michael Quarles with the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show. A couple weeks ago, I had the honor of being on the Bruce Norris Real Estate Show. I was interviewed by Norris. He's a fantastic man. I think it was my third time being interviewed. And what we chatted about, I thought it would make a good podcast for our show because it had some content that I think is valuable and important for you to hear. So I want to run that episode for you. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go.
Thank you for joining us, Michael. Again, it's been about a year.
Yeah, it's fun to be back. I'm honored.
Yeah, you know, it was so well received a year ago, and especially since so many of the deals now are coming from working directly with sellers, we wanted to loop back around, learn about some trends. So for those who hadn't heard last time, can you just give a brief synopsis of how you get started at a teenage level, building of all things, and how you sort of got into the direct mail business?
You know, it was luck at best. I was waiting for my enlist date into the Air Force, and I became bored while waiting, so I picked up the newspaper. There was an R2 lot being advertised by one of the franchise chains, and I had no clue what R2 was. However, I called the agents. The only property I've ever bought out of the MLS. Even as a broker, I don't buy that direction. And I took mechanical drawing in high school. So keep in mind, I was 18, 19. So I was just out of high school for a year. And so I knew how to do stick drawings. And way back in the day, the computer, this is way before computer, we could do everything by hand, take it down to the building department, not knowing what we were doing, and pull a permit, and that's what I did. So I absolutely got involved in real estate, not knowing what I was doing, made horrible mistakes, and had that big red S on my chest so I could get out of anything I got into. And I fell in love with dirt. As a kid, we play in dirt. A little boy, I played in dirt with my little trucks and stuff. But as an adult, I just absolutely fell in love with it. And here I am.
Right. And so when did you sort of make the switch into direct mail? I mean, obviously that was a rough experience, but you kept with it. So,
well, we're always looking for, I don't want to say that next best thing, but that best thing. Like, how can I get my phone to ring? And I knew that being a broker and a real estate professional, I didn't think it was possible or didn't want to attribute the commission dollar to an advertising dollar, because I knew that if something was on the MLS, I was still having to pay a commission. And because I could already manage the transaction, I attributed that commission to advertising. So I wanted a way to advertise. So I tried everything. I tried newspaper and TV and radio and billboards and all kinds of different ways. And I started playing around with direct mail. When I say play around, I always try to do it a lot. And so we did yellow letters, and before I even knew what a yellow letter was, professional letters, anything and everything that we could do and to send to a prospect. I hate saying it, but it's kind of like getting into investing. I was lucky. But then I started magnifying my luck and going, okay, why am I lucky? Why is this working so well? And came to a lot of conclusions, a lot of trial and error. And I think I'm my biggest guinea pig, so I always try something I think of new on myself. If it works, great. I tell everybody else about it. If it doesn't work, I keep the secret. And direct mail works great.
Well, let's talk a little bit about yellowletters.com. You've had that since about 2005, and you probably get to see a lot. Any idea? Can you give us any idea of sort of the volume that you're doing? Or, I don't know. Are you doing all over the country?
All over the country. And let's say it's in the millions of pieces.
Wow.
We were called, the U.S. Postal Service is going through a change. Most people don't realize it. But we were called by the U.S. Postal Service and asked if we would help them change.
Wow.
Because we were one of the three largest direct mailers in, I guess, California, for lack of better words.
Wow.
And we didn't even realize we were that big. But they wanted our help because we mailed so much. And
so you're a big stakeholder for them.
You know what? Stamps still cost me the same.
Oh,
we buy rolls of stamps in 10,000.
Do they give you a deal?
No, they don't.
Well, good. No. You're keeping them afloat. We need that. Okay. So, wow. How has it changed over the last decade? I mean, if you came into the business 2005, it probably wasn't a strategy a lot of people were using at the time.
No, it was because no one really understood it from an investor's perspective.
Okay.
There wasn't anybody to ask. So everything we did right, it was like the first time we did it right. And everything we did wrong, it was the first time we did it wrong. So I spent a bucket load of money learning what to do and what absolutely not to do. In the beginning, we would use services like MetroScan to give us property information from an address perspective. And we'd mail out to everybody that in a geographical area that we wanted to. And we'd call them absentee owners, or we'd call them owner occupants. But it wasn't until I think like 2008 or so where we started having some data sets or some data feeds that really allowed us to really magnify and filter our data. So in the old days, well, I'm going to call it really the old days, if I wanted to mail out 1,000 pieces of mail, I couldn't ask it, show me the 1,000 people that have equity, and show me those people that had equity for 4 years or greater, and that equity base be a percentage or higher, or a dollar value or higher. I was just mailing to 1,000 people because that's all I could do. Now I can actually say, show me all of the people that have this data filter of an equity base, a data dollar equity base, a size of house, a year built, length of ownership, how old the owner is. So now I can really refine my prospect group, because I don't want to just mail. I want to mail the highest likelihood of a response, a positive response. And I just don't want call volume. I want that call capture and that call fulfillment, that at the end of the day, I want to buy and sell a house. I don't want to talk to people about buying and selling houses. So we really had to magnify and really look at the filters, and that kind of changed for us in 2008. To today, I run an algorithm on a new market. So if I'm going to enter, say, your market, I'm going to take the zip codes, and I'm going to, through several data sets, run an algorithm on your market, and I can tell exactly where to market. So which neighborhoods and which zip codes inside of the neighborhood, and what value of property are going to sell for me, or are going to be the most likely for me to succeed at.
What changed in 2008 that made all that data available? Who's doing that?
CoreLogic. When CoreLogic and First American Title, which for the longest period of time, First American Title was the premier data feed, and they had a MetroScan at the time, and they still have it. But when CoreLogic introduced their algorithms, and that's when about the time you saw some of the national estimate companies for property values created. Well, those are all algorithm driven. So through algorithms, we can now determine the likelihood of someone having equity based upon recent sales in a neighborhood, based upon length of mortgage, the most likely interest rate at the time that person borrowed money at. A lot of assumptions, but they're still pretty good algorithms. And based upon those algorithms, we can now ask it to tell us, okay, show me the one that has $100,000 in an equity position, as an example. And it's made our life as an investor a lot stronger, less open to chance, because now we know, which is nice, now I know when the phone rings from direct mail, I know that every person who calls me because they receive something from me is in fact a potential prospect. They may not be a prospect today, but I know that they can at least sell me a house because they have an equity position. Even if we used non-direct mail forms of advertising like bandit signs or TV or radio or or billboards, not every person that calls us can be a customer. They may qualify to be a customer because they have they're motivated, but that doesn't mean that we can actually fulfill something for them. And so the direct mail position with the algorithms really help.
Yeah, the data that's starting to become available is pretty interesting, especially with the social media getting into the data business. Twitter came out with an algorithm change in the last couple of weeks, and everything is pay now. And I was just curious going into Facebook because a year ago I went in, I'm like, whoa, when did this happen? You can, mail to people with equity, their political affiliation, their philanthropic intent, and what they like. I was waiting to see if there was a category like, recent death in the family, divorced, so you could market specifically for life events, and it's not there yet, but it's clear that we're almost there, which is a little frightening, but that's a whole other story. So, where are we headed in 10 years with direct mail? I've heard that CoreLogic and First American, it happened at iSurvive Real Estate, and I forgot the name of the term, but there's this new layer of data that's going to come in the next 2 years. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't. I'm not waiting for the next big thing.
Okay.
I'm looking for how I can maximize my market. In my city, I know I have 41,000 houses that I can buy. I can't buy 41,000 houses. Some people can, I guess, but I can't. So I have enough to play with. I need now to figure out, of those 41,000, who are most likely going to sell to me. And that's where I'm getting involved and getting excited is to use my algorithms and my mechanisms to figure out who that customer is. Because it's not necessarily just now the person with an equity base, although that's an important part of it. I want to know the second layer to the third layer that actually is going to cause them to say yes to my program.
Interesting. And that's probably top secret, and you probably don't want to share too much. But if I was completely new to direct marketing, can you share there are different kinds of lists.
Sure.
Maybe some of the things that investors using that have been successful in the categories in which they're searching for when they're developing a good list.
Yeah, I think that in the picture of lists, there's a primary group, and in that group there are two groups that fall within it, and then there's a lot of subgroups to those two groups. So the primary group is an equity-based prospect, so someone who has the financial ability to sell you a house. And although equity isn't a component that's 100% required because someone can bring money into an escrow to close it, most people won't.
Right.
So they won't feed their closing, where some people will, but most won't. So we need an equity position. And the two groups inside of that equity position, the two main ones, are absentee owners. So someone that owns an investment property, and that's either going to be a forced owner because maybe it was a inherited property or a property that they lived in. Either they couldn't sell or they thought it would be a good idea to rent out, or an active investor who actually bought an investment property for passive income. Somehow they're an absentee owner. Now, it could also be that it's a secondary residence, but unlikely from a big picture. The other group are owner-occupants, and those are just folks that live in a house that they own. And so within those two groups, now we have all the subgroups, and those are, you could go for sale by owners, you could go expired listings, which is a term for realtors or real estate professionals. When they take a contract, it expires, so now that property comes off the market. You could have absentee owners, which is one of the main groups, but inside of that one, you could have unlawful detainers. So you could have someone that's evicting a tenant, which is a subgroup. Or you can have someone who has a vacancy, so that's a subgroup of an absentee. You could have code violations, which are folks that have been presented with a fix your property or we will situation. You can have divorcees, you can have inherited property, probate properties. There's a whole gamut of subgroups. But unless we deal with the primary group, the subgroup doesn't matter because I can't just market to an expired as an investor saying, okay, they wanted to sell their house. Somehow their contract with their real estate professional expired, so they still want to sell, so I'm going to go market to it. Unless I can cross-check it against my equity position list. Because if they don't have equity, I can't buy it.
Right.
So the primary lists are the equity position lists. And if you look at those lists, there's some dynamics that happen where most of us will go, okay, I want a 4-year ownership. So I want a prospect that has owned their property 4 years or greater. And I want to have a minimum equity dollar and a minimum equity percentage dollar. I may want a year built. I may want square footage. I may want bathrooms, bedrooms, those kinds of things.
It's very interesting that you're talking about that because I can see when you're testing some of these markets, then do you really test market based on sub-markets? Because all these things that we're talking about are so different.
No. What I learned through this entire process is a prospect that is motivated to sell their house doesn't care that we know that which type of prospect that they are.
Oh, okay.
Where a prospect who's looking for information about selling their house absolutely cares. So if I just inherited a house and I want to learn how to sell my house, if I receive correspondence from someone that talks about the inherited house situation, that may be intriguing to me because I want information about that. But when I'm ready to sell my house, I don't care who they are. I don't care if they give me information on probate, inherited, divorcee, unlawful detainer, code violation. All I care about is that their advertisement says, I buy houses. And then the key component to that is with cash.
Okay. So you don't think it's necessary to get in the way of the consumer at the top end of the funnel? So you're not sending a divorcee a postcard that says, got to get rid of your house because you got divorced? You just want them to get
right.
you buy house.
In the old days when we didn't know what we know now, we would have a series of letters based upon your category.
Okay.
The reality is we don't have to. When someone is motivated, they're motivated. So it's like, and I hate using this analogy, but it's a pretty clear one. If you want a checkup from a doctor, you may go and interview and you may find a doctor. You may get references, referrals to find the right doctor for that checkup. But if your arm's broken, you don't care who the doctor is. You're going to go to the first doctor you see, the first emergency room you find, and have your arm fixed. Well, our prospect is a lot like that person with a broken arm. From an investor's perspective, there's, and I hate saying it like this, but there's a lot of procrastination from the prospect's perspective.
Sure.
They've waited too long. They've gotten the broken arm. They need that broken arm fixed. The typical seller, which I'll call that the real estate agent seller, they're interviewing someone for the right of selling their house. So they're not that desperate procrastinator that the investor prospect is.
Right. Okay.
Or that they've had a bad experience with a real estate professional in the past, and they don't look at that arena as a worthy arena to solve their problem.
Okay. Interesting. That saves a lot of time and money. I guess as a marketer, I feel like I'm getting forced into trying to be more and more specific to weed through the clutter in a lot of scenarios. But in this case, as long as you're the go-to person as far as I buy houses and you're there at the right time, you're fulfilling the need. So it doesn't matter which bone is broken, I guess.
There is a difference between knowing or having the prospect know that we know and using cluster marketing to market to the prospect.
Okay.
So
let's talk about cluster marketing because we haven't talked about that yet, and it's juicy.
So if we tell someone that's a code violation, that we know they're a code violation, then we can solve your problem. Fine. It sounds good for us. For them, if they're motivated, it doesn't matter. But if I send, if we look at cluster marketing for a second, it's the idea of marketing to prospects with different forms of marketing. Because I know that, as an example of myself, I own yellow letters. And a yellow letter is a handwritten letter on a notepad, folded twice, put in an invitation envelope, and it looks like a kindergartner wrote it, and sloppy handwriting is better than pretty handwriting, and wad that piece of paper up first and stick it in an envelope is better than a creased piece of paper. So there's a lot of little tricks to it. But if I received that letter, I wouldn't acknowledge it. If my wife received that letter, she would read it. Okay. But if I receive a postcard, I'd have to be highly motivated for a postcard to cause me to reference it. If my wife saw the postcard, she's looking for the discount. She's looking for, both sides of it. But show me a professionally typed letter, one that with a logo and a life signature, and it's talking to me, meaning not necessarily my situation, but it's who I am.
Right. Okay.
I'm going to retain that one. Or give me something that looks like a traffic ticket in the mail or a tax rebate in the mail. I'm opening that thing. I'm ripping it open. I'm involved in the presentation. So anytime we can have multiple senses involved in a presentation, the better our response rate's going to be. Mm-hmm. So cluster marketing is using all of those on the same prospect group. So each month we send out a different piece because we're one group will acknowledge the postcard, the rest of the group won't. And one group will acknowledge the yellow letter, the rest of the group won't. And what it does is it stops the need for the rule of we have to touch them like 7 or 8 times before they respond to us. No, we don't. We have to touch them with what they will respond to us with or from. So we want to be the person who's marketing to them when they're motivated in a way that causes them to listen to our message and raise their hand and say, I want to call you because you're talking to me.
And the average consumer, do they even know that it's you in all those different versions?
No, and here's the beauty of it. Without naming national brands, there's a beverage company that has 6 bottled waters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and I know the last time we looked, water's water, right? It doesn't matter if it's in a square bottle, tall skinny bottle, short fat bottle, blue bottle, orange bottle, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's water. So why do they need 6 bottled waters? But when I know their tooling and manufacturing of 6 different bottled waters is costly. It's more costly than if they only manufactured one. Well, they've learned cluster marketing works. Because when I go to the convenience store and I open up the cage of water, I'm not looking at a single brand. I'm looking at 6 opportunities or 6 choices. I'm going to pick the one that I like.
Right. I guess what's very powerful about the combo of creating a good list and that if you create a good targeted list, you're spending less money blanket marketing, hoping people will open, and being able to spend that money sending 5 pieces to the same person.
Well, sorry to cut you off, but here's the big part of it. Most investors send the same thing until it bores the prospect to death. So they're sending the same postcard, the same professional letter, the same yellow letter over and over and over and over again because that's whoever they're following, that's what they're saying to do. So let's assume for a second you're a prospect.
Okay.
And myself and another investor are marketing to you, and we've been marketing to you for 6 months. They have sent you a professional letter every month, and it says XYZ Investors Incorporated on it, and you receive this thing for 6 months. Have you saved 6 letters or have you saved 1 letter throwing 5 away? And then I'm marketing to you every month with 6 different individual pieces, not referencing each other. So the consumer doesn't say, oh, it's XYZ Investors Incorporated. It's Mom and Pop. It's Susie. It's Billy. It's Professional Bob. And now I'm keeping all 6. When I make my decision, nothing else matters. Am I choosing between 1 and 7 or 1 and 2? And I'm going to say if I have 6 opportunities to grab the attention of the prospect and you only have 1 and we spent the same amount of money, I'll win.
That's very, very true. And it's funny because I'm an absentee owner and I get these mailers, and what's really funny, I've actually called a few of them. I never get called back. And I've only gotten 1 mailer.
Well, I hate saying it, and we're trying to fix it. Each of us that help folks succeed in real estate investing, we try to fix this all the time. There are a lot of phones that are broken. Yeah,
agreed. And there's just some people that I think the letters I'm getting are from a national brand and a system, and it's just interesting to me that it's sort of one and done, which surprised me. But we are out of time for this segment. Luckily, you're staying on for a second segment. But real quick, if they would like to reach out to you, what are the best ways to get in touch with you?
The easiest way to find me is to go to michaelquarles.com, and that's QUARLES.com. And there's contact me there. If you forget that, can't spell it, because I know it's tough to spell. I can't spell it some days. Just go to yellowletters.com, and they can find me as well.
Perfect. We'll see you in the next segment.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening. We'll be right back. Are you running out of leads? It's time you tried Yellow Letters at yellowletters.com. Get motivated seller leads through Yellow Letters, postcards, zip letters, typed professional letters, greeting cards, door hangers, and business cards. Yellow Letters is a full-service marketing company created with your success in mind. Get the personal attention you need to get your direct mail campaign started, and get in touch at yellowletters.com.
And we are back in 3, 2, 1.
Last time we talked a lot about sort of making a great list and cluster marketing, which is so smart. let's talk a little bit about design, because cluster marketing is very much that. You're sending, how many pieces do you typically send before you decide, okay, we're going to turn it off? They're clearly not interested, and hopefully we're in the drawer somewhere, but enough is enough.
You mean, is that question, how many pieces do I send if I'm using myself as a guinea pig?
Sure.
Besides going, that was really a bad idea and I'm not telling anybody. I'll mail about 20,000 pieces out before I learn that I didn't want to learn it.
Okay.
Because I think one of the dilemmas that a lot of people put themselves in, or issues they put themselves in, is they try to reinvent something. Let those of us that are doing it professionally and reinvent it or invent it. And instead of you changing it up, just use what works. Because my 20,000... although I hate spending the money and sending out 20,000 pieces that may have only gotten a 0.75% response rate and I was hoping for a 6, I'd rather me do it than you do it as a new investor, because your money is more important to you than my money is to me. And I know they're equal money or equal dollars, but let me test. And then when I see it works, I'll tell you about it rather than you trying to figure it out on your own. And if you have an idea and you want an opinion about it, just be open to the answer, and because I'll be glad to give you my opinion. But let us test.
Now, you said 6% return rate. That blows my mind, because I think a lot of investors nowadays are getting really pretty excited if they hit the 1%. And I think when they say 1%, they got a phone call. Whether or not they close a deal, that's another conversation. But 6%, that sounds really high. So when you say return rate, is that you get a phone call or is that a close?
No, that's a phone call. And now keep in mind, and I don't want to burst your bubble, but you live in the high rent district, okay? In comparison to me, like if I took my house and I moved it down to where you guys are, it'd be worth like $7 million.
Hey, I'm in Riverside, buddy. No. Well, we're not coastal,
but if you get a % response rate, that's like me getting a 5% response rate.
Okay.
Because it's about dollars at the end of the day. But most people equate it to the, call volume percentage. Well, no. Let's look at, we have lead generation, lead capture, lead fulfillment. Let's look at the percentage of fulfillment. That's the important part. And in your market, if I bought a house worth $500,000 and I bought it at 60 cents on the dollar, then I know what my discount is off of that. Well, if I bought in my market $100,000 house at 60%, well, I have to buy a lot more houses to have the same dollar at the end of the day. So you really have to look at what the markets do, or what the difference is in the market.
We didn't cover that the last show. Please share. Where are you based out of? I'm
in Bakersfield, California, but please edit that out, because I don't want anybody to think negatively of me. And I love Bakersfield. It's where my family is, and it's at the desert.
Okay. Oh, no
I was
problem.
kidding. You don't have to edit it. I'm proud of being from Bakersfield.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh no. I was like, it's all right. I get it all the time. I'm from Riverside. They give me a hard time.
One of the things and it's all through systemization. One of the things I've learned over the last 12 months or so, actually a little longer than that, is that we can do this virtually. So I can go into a market. Last show we talked about that I run an algorithm on a market. So I can go into a market that's across country. Let's take North Carolina as an example. I can go into North Carolina, run an algorithm on it, determine if I want it to, in fact, market into that market. When I do, then define what part of the market, and I can do all of this virtually. So I no longer have to knock on a door or meet a seller. I can do everything via, we used to say FedEx and fax. Now it's like DocuSign or services like that, and the internet. So we can buy with never meeting our prospect. And our prospect actually likes it. If you think about the person who's in urgent mode, they don't have time to see us. And besides that, a majority of our prospects don't want to meet us, not because they don't want to say hello to us, but because they physically can't meet us. In your city, if you had to drive across town, that could take you a couple hours. Well, if you're in Texas and you have a house in your city, well, you're not going to meet me anyway. So if my prospect can't meet me and doesn't want to meet me, or it's an inconvenience for them to meet me, and they're in the more of an urgent mode than that meet and greet and that's old school, why not do it virtually? And we've been trained through the internet and some of the service providers that are there doing great things. We've trained the consumer to have it be okay to buy something, interact with someone with never shaking their hand. We're in the old school way of buying houses. We always had to do the meet and greet. We don't have to anymore.
Well, let's talk about that, because you're reaching out to them via direct mail, and that's a pretty big switch. Because I know we'll get there eventually, sort of cross-promoting channels, but to take them from direct mail to being okay with not ever meeting you, that's a big
Keep
change.
in mind, our prospects, the urgent procrastinator. So they're in urgent mode, so they're like Horseshack, for all of us that know who he is, and they need that broken arm fixed. So they need that. They want to be that. I mean, that's their life, unfortunately. And now, I'm not saying procrastination is any class of individuals, because I've bought houses from Superior Court judges, and I've bought houses from people that they've sent to prison. And so everybody qualifies across the gamut of being a procrastinator.
Sure.
So it's just a mentality type that's waited too long or to use traditional means of selling a house, or they don't want to use traditional means. And what we have found is, as long as they're in the urgent mode and they're motivated, they don't want to meet us. They don't need to meet us. It's not the gooey part of real estate that they want. Where if they list with a real estate professional, they're interviewing a real estate professional. They're interviewing that person to list their house. They want some of that romance that goes along with that relationship building process. Our seller doesn't want that. They just want our cash.
Right. And I know we're going to run out of time, so I'm gonna blow through some of these questions, and we'll just keep this light, the design side, because then I do want to get into systems a little bit, and then cross promotion, because I think that's more of the questions that came from last year that I'd like to cover. So, a great mail piece. You'd already talked about cluster marketing. When you do a mailer, how many different pieces do you typically send out to the same person?
We're gonna do a 6-piece rotation. So the first piece is a small text postcard, and text meaning that it's written on, not visual like a picture. So those are called pictorials. And then in the agent business, they use a lot of pictorials. Or you'll see like some national brands use pictorials because that's how you brand. We're not in the branding business. We want to solve your urgent need right now. So a text postcard that speaks to the prospect. It's the small one, and it's orange. In today's marketplace, the primary color is orange, except for twice a year. Then twice a year, the primary color is pink. So orange and pink. It used to be yellow, but now it's orange, pink, and then yellow. Second piece is a yellow letter, and it's a real simple letter. I want to buy your house at this address. That's it. Because the font size of a handwritten message is so large, we can lose our audience. We want our message fast and sweet. Get it into their brain, tell them how you can solve their problem, and that's it. Third piece is a large text postcard. Fourth piece is a professional letter, so it's typed, letterhead, signature, all that kind of good stuff. Fifth piece, and it's working great, but it's not today urgent, solve your problem. So this is for the person that wants to be nurtured, and that's a greeting card of some sort, either a Mother's Day, a Christmas card, a New Year's card, something in it with a business card inserted, just to let them know when you need me, I'm here. The sixth piece is we call it a zip letter, and it's something that looks like a traffic ticket or a refund or something like that. You actually have to tear it apart to open it. It looks like a check coming in the mail, and that thing works great. So all 6 pieces working in a combination are really speaking to the different mind frames that we have out there. And color is important. Red's better than blue, except on life signatures. Black is better for typed. In a postcard setting, you use multiple colors of text. You want it to be text and handwritten. Your handwritten, you want to be in red. Your text, you want to be in black, but you want some green when you start talking about cash. And we could go on days about what things are supposed to touch. I mean, feel like, look like, smell like kind of stuff. But the idea is to, as fast as we can, we've got to get into the mind of the prospect.
Wait, I don't want to miss this. Did you say smell? Are you doing olfactory testing?
No, but, I say smell only because that's, I want to talk about interaction. I want the people, if we could, I would. I want them to be part of the presentation, because if I can get someone part of the presentation, I win more. I've influenced them greater. Even if they don't pick up the phone today to call me, they'll remember me because they had to tear me apart over somebody that they didn't, and it's just true. So I don't, other than just saying it's true, I could send a bunch of tests out to people and have them interact, but interaction's better.
No, that's great. I didn't think that there were 6. I didn't remember that, and all of those make a lot of sense. And it makes me laugh. The orange and pink, you said that was a change. Why the change for the first one?
We went to orange, and it was a test. It was like, okay, I'm going to start testing, because the reason we used yellow for forever is because that was the Postal Service's color. So if you received a notice like go pick up a package, or you have a certified letter or whatever, it was on a yellow piece of paper. So when your mind saw it, you would think important, urgent.
Sure.
So it was yellow for the longest time. Well, like anything else, you have to change, right?
Got it.
Or change could be good. So we started testing colors. We tested blues and greens and whites. Yeah, white's the worst color for marketing pieces. And then we tried orange, and the numbers just like blew up. It's like a pumpkin orange. And it works well.
And any idea why that might be?
What I have learned in marketing is all I care about is it working at the end of the day.
Right.
Psychoanalyzing why someone does something is for somebody else with a PhD.
It works. Leave it alone.
Right. And that's, on our last show, I was actually talking about that. I wish people would just leave it alone and just let it work.
Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. Yeah. I get it.
But pink works great because of it's a color that we can associate with although a negative, a positive. It's a helping color. So when we have some of the cancer awareness cycles, we use a lot of pink. And when we really want to give that message, and when we can give that message, we should. Like as an example, the probably the world's most famous logo is Red Cross. Mm-hmm. And so the color red means a lot. So there's reasons behind that color when we market. A lot of positive reasons. And one of the biggest ones is it's a caring color. And pink is that second caring color, and so we should use it. But pink all the time would lose its, position.
Agreed.
For folks, they would miss it.
Okay, well, let's move on to follow-up systems, because I think some people get overwhelmed. And the mailers that I get, they're really inconsistent, and I typically only get one. I've gotten a postcard, and I've gotten from my rentals, I've gotten the yellow letter, and then they stop.
Right.
So let's talk about systems. I buy a list. I'm going to work that list for how long? And then these 6 mailers, how often do you send these mailers?
I would send them every 30 days now.
Okay.
We can send them every 3 weeks.
So you've got a 5 to 6 month cycle. Okay.
5 to 6 month cycle. And then you're going to run another list.
Right.
Could have the same people on the list. So geographically, you'll probably stay the same.
Okay.
If you run an algorithm on an area, you change the area, but most likely they're going to stay the same. Some people will fall off because they sold to somebody else, or they refinanced out of their equity position. And then some people, because of an age factor or a length of ownership factor or an equity position, will come onto the list. And so some people will get that letter, the 7th month, 8th month, those kind of thing. Here's what I know about someone. You don't notice it until you need it, which is the same reason when we buy a car, we didn't notice all of the other people that drove the same color car until we bought ours.
That's so true.
So we're not absorbing the message, which is why I say you can't brand in our business. Because it doesn't matter. We don't need you, so we're not thinking about you. And I don't want to wait to brand when someone starts thinking about me. I want them to call me. I want to solve their problem. So besides the color and the texture of the piece, the message is also important.
Right, and how do you manage that data from a list perspective? So we've got a 6 month cycle, and let's just say 2 months later we're going to pull that new list. Is this an Excel? Is there a program that can?
It's an Excel. It's pretty simple. People try to reinvent how to store this list. Microsoft did it for us. They have Excel, and you suppress it, against the old list, so you're not buying the new list, and you just keep track of it. And I wish there was a really complicated do it this way because this is the best and buy this gadget. The reality is we can overthink something that's really simple and just, put it on a tickler file and, the 15th of every month, send out a piece of mail and keep your list on an Excel spreadsheet.
Man, I really thought we were going to get into a conversation about customer relations management systems, and I thought you were.
No, hang on. That's not marketing of the prospect. That's post marketing of the prospect, because that's a big thing.
Oh, okay, I got you.
If you ask me, what do I do with the list I'm mailing to? Well, you just mail to it every month, and you keep track of it. And, there are online service providers that you'll never lose the list because it's in the cloud.
Got it.
Short of, or more than that, you're just wasting money on a CRM system because you're not going to put, 100,000 prospects into a CRM system and manage that easily.
No, it gets really tricky. Right. So you're saying maybe once somebody calls on...
absolutely. At that point...
Got it. Okay.
At that point, the moment that phone rings or they text you or you get an internet response, you better have something. If you don't, you're kidding yourself. And there are a lot of service providers out there that I think are broken, and it took us a while to create one that I can use on a national basis. Now, keep in mind that 40% of our business comes from follow-up and follow-through. So for me, follow-up, I'm talking to the person when they call. I'm talking to them at 3, 5, and 7 if I haven't made them an offer. 3, 7, and 10 if I have made them an offer. If they don't accept or ask me to make an offer, I'm also speaking to them at day 15, day 30, day 60, and day 90. So that's just my voice outbound.
Wow.
At the same time, my script is grabbing when I'm speaking to them. One of the nice things about our marketplace is, especially buying virtual, what address can my purchase manager email you an offer to? Now, keep in mind, our sellers want offers, right? They want an offer. They're going to supply that email address, which they get 29 pieces of email from me over a 58-day period. If they've texted me in the beginning, they're going to get 4 additional texts coming back to them. So during a 90-day process, I'm speaking to them a lot.
Yeah, you sure are. And you've got people helping you monitor that and systems in place, I guess.
Yeah, and so you have to have a call service, and all of my stuff is all in-house. So we have a call center. Mm-hmm. I have what we call Alex stations and Ryan stations, and the reason they're called Alex and Ryan is that's a guy or girl name, and the person calling, it's easy for them to pronounce. We always want names that people understand and pronounce, and when we answer the phone, we're answering it Alex if it's a first-time inbound call, and every operator can answer all their questions, go through the 16-page script. Everything's scripted. It goes to a CRM system that launches. And the moment that call's done, that Alex station then takes that recorded call, and this is a key component, I think, that a lot of investors don't do. We record everything. So when the caller calls, the first thing they hear is this call's being recorded for training purposes, because we need to train ourselves. Even if we think that we're the best at what we do, we still need to listen back to ourselves for all of our weak words and our pauses and our inflections to make sure that we're saying the things that we need to say the way we need to say them to cause the highest percentage of lead fulfillment. So it's not lead generation, it's that lead fulfillment at the end of the day. And when an investor says, Mike, I've gotten all these calls, but I haven't got, they haven't bought a house yet.
Yeah.
Well, that's not about the call. It's about the person or the systems. And so, yeah, we have a pretty significant CRM system that does all the follow-up and follow-through.
That's amazing. And I think that's so incredible. And I don't think, a lot of our market is smaller real estate investors who maybe flip 5 to 10 a year. And we have several more that do more than that. But I think it's trying to think outside the box and show them that this is probably the next phase that they're going to have to get to manage that process efficiently. Right. So we've only got about 3 minutes left, and I knew this was going to happen. So just real quick, can you talk a little bit about marketing crossover? So you've got direct mail. How important is that to have an online presence? Is the consumer...
I think pay-per-click.
Okay.
Because I'll do a bucket load of direct mail. And the reason I like direct mail is because I know who my audience is. I also like pay-per-click done correctly. Just because someone says they sell pay-per-click or manage pay-per-click doesn't mean they understand investors. So we do a host of pay-per-click. We use about 1,400 keywords in 4 different groups. So we're using specific keywords. We're using non-specific keywords. Our ratio is $22 a lead, which is really good in the pay-per-click business. So it costs me $22 for someone to fill out a web form that says they want to sell their house. That's not including when they pick up the phone and call me, and I can't track that number because I don't want to use a disguised phone number with the pay-per-click services because I want to use my 800 number.
Right.
But $22 to get someone to call me. Now, here's the issue with pay-per-click. It works really well nationally. It doesn't work as well locally. So we're fighting through testing a lot of different layers of local pay-per-click. But pay-per-click's awesome. Everybody ought to be doing it. And make sure that you have a website that doesn't teach people about selling a house. The only thing your website should do is have a way for them to contact you. You need a form and a phone number. Let somebody else educate your prospect on how you buy houses. You buy the house. And there is a difference in time frame between when someone decides, I'm going to sell my house now, and the time they actually do decide to sell their house. So they'll go on some websites that tell them everything under the sun about how to sell their house. And then at the last minute, they'll go to a site that says, just call this phone number or fill out this form.
That's so funny that you say that. And I'm sure that you've seen investors do this. They have a wholesale website and a before and after picture website all on the same site, confusing the visitor.
It's not a dating relationship. I'm not trying to get them to marry me. I want them to call me because their arm's broken. I want to be the emergency room, that flashing neon light that says, emergency, emergency, I will help you. And most investors try to be that other thing. Well, I understand nurturing from a marketing perspective.
Right.
But let's be a problem solver.
Sort of really the squeeze page approach online, which is smart. Okay.
And then you have your text platforms and your social media platforms, which I think done right could be good. Done wrong is a waste of time. I think the arena that people should start introducing themselves to, and it'll be a little bit hard because this is a new arena for a lot of folks, is the text platform arena. As an example, if I can.
Sure.
I did a test for you, just for your audience to understand this arena and how it could work for them. Mm-hmm. If they text the word I buy houses, all as one big word, so I buy houses, to the number 313131, they'll receive an experience there that is somewhat new. And we know that not everybody, my mother-in-law who's 84 years old and my uncle who's 89, they do not have cell phones. Most everybody else has a cell phone with email or with text.
Yep.
We have to be cognizant of the fact that we can reach our prospect faster if we use tools to reach our prospect. And then you find a prospect that wants us to reach them by reaching out to us first. We have to take advantage of that contact they're asking for.
Will you cross promote web and text on a direct mail piece?
Well, it depends on it has to be a professional piece. So it can be a postcard or a professional letter. It can't be anything that looks like from mom and pop because mom and pop wants to deal with mom and pop.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. All right, we are out of time. I knew that was going to happen, but Michael, thank you so much for joining us. And if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way they can reach you?
MichaelQuarles.com, and Quarles is Quarles, or yellowletters.com. Either way, be glad to help. That was fun. I really enjoyed it. I like Aaron a lot. It's just absolutely too bad we're 4.5 hours or 4 hours apart. I'd be taking him to dinner and picking his brain about all kinds of great things. He seems like an enjoyable person, could be enjoyable to be around. Hope you enjoyed that. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show. Get more info and stay in touch at michaelquarles.com.